What do you do for a living? This is what you do for a living?
Yeah, this is what I do for a living. I used to promote shows and stuff like that too. I used to work with ECW for like 7 years. I did everything for them.
No, that I liked. I liked ECW.
Yeah, that was good.
Paulie Dangerous, yeah, I liked.
He was a
I
good
liked
guy.
his style. You know, I don't know how he was business-wise with money.
Right.
But, that I don't know. But he always treated me good.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
You can never go by, hey, this guy was a piece of shit, so I say he's a piece of shit. I go by what he did to me.
Right.
You know, what you hear in this business,
Doesn't mean anything.
believe half of what you hear and nothing of what you see, and that is the gospel.
Right. Were you a fan of the business growing up?
Yes, I was. I was from Portland, Oregon. We had Portland Wrestling there, promoter Don Owen.
Right.
The Owen generations since 1925 until 1991, when the World Wrestling Federation finally took them off the air.
Right.
And that was it. They were on a handshake basis. As you know, I'm probably in sports and everything, handshakes don't mean nothing anymore.
Right.
Old school.
Everything's contracted now.
That's correct.
How did you actually break into the business? What is your background too, as far as like sports?
I don't know what our time level is. I want to shoot with you. As in pro wrestling, I protected the business for my entire career until Vince McMahon exposed it, of course, to everybody, so he could be the top dog, and he's done very well with that. Me, I was a boxer before I was a wrestler. I had several amateur fights, 8, 9, and 10 years old. I was sexually abused by a relative, let's put it that way, and it was horrific, as anyone can imagine. Can I look? I mean, how
Sure.
we straight shooting here?
Oh yeah, you totally get into it.
Straight shooting?
Yeah.
Okay, man. When I was 8, just like on Saturday nights, I got America's Most Wanted, and I think his name is John.
I forgot his last name. The guy that was from American
You know,
Wanted.
well, anyway, John had a son that was
Adam.
brutally raped and murdered, Adam, and me was pretty much the same way, but I wasn't murdered, but I was murdered mentally. And my mother knew something was wrong, and if I would have told my dad, he would have killed him. If I told my uncle, who was also a professional boxer, would have killed him. So I kept it inside till I was 15, and then I realized what happened. When you turn 15, things happen in your life, you reach puberty.
Right.
So I wanted it myself. At 15, I was light heavyweight. I was 6'1", 175 at 15, and I was sparring with world-class fighters and fighting amateur. So I made the mistake and told my uncle, who was the fighter. He was a truck driver. On the way back, he was going to go talk to him with me and probably rough him up a little bit and turn him into the police. He was killed in a truck accident on the way back. He was rushing to get back, so I felt like I was responsible for that. And that just, my dad's only brother, and I was just broke me down, man. So 3 weeks or 2 weeks later, I told my mother. I had to tell somebody at 15, you're going through those changes. What happened then is my mother knew. She told me that she knew it, she could feel it, but I always said I had a headache when something was brought up, are you okay, Billy? When I was growing up, I said, I got a headache, Mom, you know, from the fight game. She didn't want me to do it, but my dad and uncle did, you know.
Right.
And then I told her what happened, and it's her sister's husband that did this. And they both knew it, so they were keeping it a secret. My mother and I drove out there to Oregon City, and my mother slapped the crap out of her sister, and then my uncle got up and I pushed him down. That's all I did. My mother had a nervous breakdown, and we kept our secret not to tell, my dad, and this is real tough to talk about. For anybody who's been abused, I look into the camera. I'm looking at you, I know the camera's right here. Anybody who's been abused, and there's been millions of them, you feel like you're guilty. You know, you feel like you're the guilty one. Well, now after my uncle died, my dad knew nothing of it. He just died in a truck wreck. And then my mother died 3 days later of a brain aneurysm or a nervous breakdown. situation. So in well, you know, you want to shoot interview, you're going to get one. My mother died. My mother died, and my uncle died in 3 weeks apart, and then my dad went blind 2 years later.
Wow.
With diabetes. So I had to hold this all inside. So for 37 years I kept it a secret. And that's why I became violent, you know. And in the ring I was vicious. So with Jerry Quarry, the late great fighters, when I was sparring with him at 17 and holding my own, you know. Of course he beat me, but I mean, Ron Lau, you ever heard of him, heavyweight?
No.
From Denver, Colorado. I'm sure a lot of people have it. These are guys that were vicious heavyweights. And wrestling wasn't on my table at that time. Just the death of my uncle and my mother. And then taking care of my dad.
Huh.
And that's that. You know, how else do you want me to continue it?
So you actually got into the business. How did you actually get into the actual wrestling business?
Okay. Now, it's been 37 years since I broke my silence on this, January of 2006, this year. And that's a whole different story we can talk about later. This is a legal battle that's going on right now. I got into business because we watched wrestling as a family, and all I was in life at that time was a janitor, custodian, making $96 an hour. All the potential in the world. I dropped out of school at 15. We got to my mother's and uncle's deaths. I went into the military. I liked that for the first 6 months. And then I think I made the E4 after 6 months, which is hard to do. Basic training, then infantry training at Fort Lewis, Washington, and Fort Knox, Kentucky. And then my dad got sick. And I came home on leave, and I extended my leave, which is called AWOL. And I went back. When I went back, then I spent 6 months in the military stockade.
Wow.
In Fort Lewis, Washington. So I was just young and stupid, and it was wrong for what I did. But once again, I wanted to take care of my dad.
Right.
And he wanted me to leave. He knew I was violent. He knew I could probably end up in jail for a long time. But he didn't know anything about the sexual abuse. Then we were watching wrestling one day. Let's up at, now past 15, let's up at the, when I was 27, I ran into a guy. I had never taken steroids. And I was legitimately 6'4", 220, which is standard, fairly good size. I was just ripped with muscle, but it wasn't bulky like. So this guy convinced me, and it's my own doing. He never shot the needle in my butt, but I started taking steroids, and I went from 6'4", 220 to 6'4", 290 in 4 months.
Wow.
It's just like the BS that's going on right now with Barry Bonds. I'll look you right in the camera and say, can I say the words?
You could definitely say it.
Full of shit. Because no one goes from 195 to 285 without taking steroids. You take them, one, because you get big and muscular. Two, it's tremendous with your hand and eye coordination. You become lightning, and that's really great for a baseball player and a wrestler, because one false move, you can kill the guy.
Right.
And football, but Mark McGuire, the same thing. I idolized him, and now he took the Fifth Amendment. He's a liar. He's full of shit. Sammy Sosa's full of shit. Canseco came out about it. At least he told the truth, whether he made money or not.
Right.
He's telling the truth. But baseball's not the problem. 18% of them take it. Wrestling, pro wrestling, 95% of the wrestlers take it, and the other 5%'s lying.
Exactly.
Same as in professional football. So now we go on. Now I won a bodybuilding contest, what's called Mr. Portland, Then I placed runner-up in 1981 of March. I came second in the Mr. Pacific Coast. That qualified me for the Mr. America contest. So I had a choice to make, Mr. America or, unbeknownst to me, professional wrestling. Now, a promoter named Don Owen was in Portland, and another guy named Dutch Savage, a great wrestler in his time, by the way, very good athlete. And what he did, I went down to the wrestling matches and said I'd like to be a pro wrestler with this guy. Had been telling me for the last year to try it because I was such a good athlete. I also played racquetball and open in 8 tournaments.
Oh, wow.
And I took up that sport. I was 29, I'm in great shape now, but got no money.
All right.
I'm still a custodian. And not that that's a bad job for anybody who's a janitor, but you're not going to go nowhere with it. And so I went down to the Portland Sports Arena and met Don Owen. And he said, the late, great Don Owen, great promoter. And he said, nah, kid, I don't know, you look too, I don't want no local, yokel, that type of thing. So Dutch Savage said, go down to Stu Hart's. I'll have you lined up to go down there. And so what they did, I had my last, no joke, it was back when gas was probably, bucket gallon, and 90 cents, not $3 or whatever. It is today in June of 2006. So I drove down to Calgary, Alberta. I had $200 left when I got down there. They had about a total of 30 guys. Most of them were Canadian football players. And, they took me down to what they called the Stu Hart's legendary dungeon.
All right.
The late, great Stu Hart also passed. A lot of the old timers are passing. And these guys are old school, So I went down there, and the first thing he had to do was to kick your feet out onto this carpet over concrete. The carpet's this thin, and you had to just tuck and roll. Half the guys couldn't do it. And the first time they did it, then they'd bite their tongue and a half off and be bleeding and all that, and they'd just drop out. I did it, and it hurt, but I didn't sell it.
All right.
I did it again, didn't sell it. Dynamite Kid, the British Bulldog, was there. He was already wrestling on top. And it come down to the last 4 guys, and I had to make it because I wanted to make it for my dad. Plus, I didn't have enough money to get home.
Huh. Right. Right.
Hey, I'm between a rock and a hard spot. The rock gets the hard spot. And what happened was I just took the tremendous punishment. Stu Hart would put you in these holes and you're like a pretzel. And Bret Hart, his son, was there already wrestling. And fantastic wrestler. What happened was, like I say, I don't know how long this interview is, and I want to be real honest with you. Straight shoot with me. I haven't had no interviews since 1992. It's been 14 years.
Wow.
Because of the media thing with Hulk Hogan and the steroid issues. But what happened was it came down to me and a couple other guys, real good Canadian wrestlers and athletes, football players, and I took and beat them all out. And I made the team.
Right.
And I had my first match my 10th or 11th day. I wrestled a guy named Duke Myers, and they say in the magazines it was a 15-minute draw, but really it was 10 minutes. I got pinned in 10 minutes.
Right.
But they said that I had good talent, and Dynamite Kid took me under his thumb, and I'll go on record right now, and I made it a long way in this business, and I wouldn't have made it without Dynamite Kid. He was the greatest pure talent that's ever come out of professional wrestling, and right now, he's, he's crippled, right. And I'll give you a background check on that later in the World Wrestling Federation, what Vince McMahon, made him wrestle in WrestleMania instead of just paying him with his back was broke. You could see it, could he move. But from there, I wrestled approximately 2 months with Don Owen calling on a weekly basis, asking Stu Hart, how's this kid doing? And he goes, yeah, so. Instead of saying he's doing great, you know.
He wanted you for
He wanted me.
Right.
Not to brag or anything like that. I mean, that's just the shoot of the game. And finally, I called my father, and he was real happy. My father was a diabetic, and he had to take he had juvenile diabetes. Anybody who has juvenile diabetes or diabetes, you know what I'm talking about, insulin 3 or 4 times a day, 3 times a day. And he worked hard as a painter for 25 years up until almost he died, you know, until he went blind. But the bottom line here is that Dynamite Kid took me to the side. I told him I only had $200, so he let me stay at his fourplex. I felt bad about that. I was laying on the floor. He made me get up literally and lay on the couch, you know, and fed me everything. I didn't have the money for it. Making $25 Canadian a match. Now we're called another episode of In the Van. That's what they call. You know, can you imagine 12 wrestlers going from Calgary, Alberta, every Monday to Regina, Saskatchewan, I think.
Right.
For $25, that's what I was making. A lot of guys making more, but in a van. You know,
That's
luckily
amazing.
for me, it was in the summer, because in the winters there it's freezing.
Right.
And that van breaks down, you're done. You could die out there. Of course, there's enough body heat in the van, and you can keep everybody alive, even 60 below.
Right.
But tremendous stories there. Then Don Owens finally got a hold of me, and through my dad, actually. He talked to my dad because he had my dad's number, and I took and was called down to Portland. And my debut there in my hometown of Portland, Oregon was November 6th, 1982. I remember it well. I took my dad down, and he was in a wheelchair. At that time he was blind, and it was also an amputee from diabetes, you know, circulation.
All right.
And you know, I'll never forget it because, you know, my dad just cried and cried and cried. He couldn't believe it, that I made it to that level. And they put me in main events right away. So I was making about $1,000, $1,500 a week.
Wow.
You know.
All right.
Which is amazing, you know.
Definitely.
From where I come from, you know. So I stayed there from January 2nd to from November 6th, 1982 to January 2nd, 1984, when Eddie Graham called me.
Before we go to Florida, I just want to
Okay.
go down to some guys'
Sure,
names that you've worked with. Roddy Piper from Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, you know, that's what I would really like. You know, I don't know if I'm like taking the lead.
No, this is good. We can cover the territories, but I definitely want to talk about some of the guys you worked with too.
Okay,
Like
great.
these are some guys that got. I'll throw names out, and you can tell me some memories and thoughts on them.
Okay.
Roddy Piper from Portland, Oregon.
Okay, Roddy lives in Hillsboro.
Right.
Now, there's 4 elements. When I say 4, there's 4 key elements in professional wrestling. You have to have them. You have to have at least 2 or you can't make it.
Promo.
Okay, 1 is promo, interview. Roddy had that down to a science. Probably Dusty Rhodes himself and Hulk Hogan, the best interviewers in the business. Ric Flair I didn't like because basically the same thing, and I wrestled him many times. But he's been around longer than anybody, so who can argue that? He had great on his stick, tremendous charisma, Roddy Piper, tremendous. You know, when he, just like Hulk Hogan again, and Dusty Rhodes. But that's where I would take and draw the line. As far as physique, you know, Roddy's physique was skinny until Roddy got on the steroids. And as you know, in '92, you know,
Right.
But he got on the roids and gained about 40 pounds, so he looked a little bit better, you know.
Right.
Roddy's a good bullshitter. You know, I was boxing, he told me he was boxing champion in wrestling, and I wanted to get in the ring with him one time. He didn't want to dare do that. I tried a couple times to do that. And then his working ability and his body were suspect. But he had so much charisma and so good on the stick that he made it big time. Then the WWF, he just, you know, he's a take control kind of guy. You have to be that way. And I'm a take control kind of guy, but in a different way. There's different ways you take control. He made a movie, made millions. He done it. Roddy, I'm proud of you. You know, he took the bull by the horns and went with it.
What about Buddy Rose?
You want to get into a shoe with that? Buddy Rose, for the biggest, heaviest guy, the best athlete I've ever seen in the business. I've never seen a bigger guy, 300-400 pounds, that could move like Playboy Buddy Rose. He even skated with a professional hockey team in Portland, Oregon in '79.
Right.
The Portland Winterhawks are 80, I think. And he could outskate some of those kids. And he could actually score in the goalie because he's from Minnesota, played hockey. But as a shoot, that was my first learning lesson in life. It was in 1983, and I had saved every penny I got for myself, my brothers, and my dad. And that asshole came up to me said he needed $10,000, and he needed cash for the federal government for taxes. And that's probably the worst enemy I have in this business, as far as wanting to rip his head off. I was not wanting to go to prison because he ripped me off for 10 grand. He knows it. I know it. There was a bank draft, and one was $5,000 cash. The other was $5,000 bank draft. He's avoided me. But I've haunted him everywhere he went in wrestling. I ruined his career because I followed him.
Huh.
I found out where he was. He'd quit here, quit there, quit this, thinking I was going to show up.
Right.
Blackjack Mulligan helped me a lot with that when he was with the WWF.
Right.
Because he didn't like him either. But as far as his talent, I can't take nothing away from the guy.
Talked about Dynamite Kid. What are some of your thoughts and memories on Dynamite?
Well, it was sad when I I'm just starting now to get into the internet. I never got into it till now, and I seen I was on like 28 to 40,000 pages, and they're black marketing a lot of my items and stuff. I knew nothing about it.
Right.
I guess it's legal. But Dynamite Kid, I read his story, his shoot story. I don't know who. Did you do that story?
No, I know. The book, I did read the book.
Okay, and I haven't read the book, but I would sure like to. After we get done here, maybe you can put
I'll get your address and
contact.
I'll get you one, definitely.
Okay, thank you. But to see him in the position he's in, with his back broken, giving it all for this business, to come off the top rope onto the concrete with a flying headbutt, he was such a high-risk maneuver man that it cost him his early career. Yeah, he made a lot of money. I just hope he tucks it away.
All right.
And there's none better worker in the world, period. I think a lot of people will agree with me on that.
Ken Batera.
My tag team partner in 1986 and partially of 87. But then I got in the angle with Hercules Hernandez, the late Hercules Hernandez. Again, I got to say that. I mean, Hercules and I were so close, Ray Fernandez,
Right.
that when I left, I had a house in Tampa. He bought and lived in it until his death. I believe passed away in it, in the house with a heart attack.
Right.
That's what I heard. I don't know if that's true. But I didn't know anything about it till 2 months after, because I was so out of wrestling, out of sync.
Right.
And he loved his kids, and he was a great wrestler. We wrestled WrestleMania 3 WWF. I was the only one that gigged, juiced,
Right.
cut the head, and I got 40 stitches because I cut too deep because we used a chain.
I remember.
And I told him to lay him in, man. There's almost 100,000 people in Detroit, Pontiac Silverdome, so we always shot with each other in the ring. A lot of guys will bitch about, oh, hey, man, you potatoed me. Potato means that,
Right.
you hurt, for real. Well, we never did complain or bitch to each other. And that's why I think a lot of people liked our matches, because it was pretty realistic,
Right.
But great wrestler, great guy, great talent. And you know what? He had all four qualities. Body, charisma, interview, and he could work, man.
Yep, definitely. What about Tom Zenk?
Tom Zink, great talent, jealous of me. Why I say that? Because no one understood me In 1985, after I left and went to the Florida and then went on to the WWF, well, Tom Zink took over in Portland as the top babyface. And my dad had a stroke, you know, and I immediately came home and then wrestled in Portland, and right away Don Owens put me on top again, which put him a level below, and he was jealous over that. I read some articles now. There's a policy I talked to you before this interview. You believe, you know, half of what you hear and nothing of what you see, because all the boys are great workers.
Right.
So you don't know if it's a shoot or a work.
Right, right.
It's like when you're talking to me, you don't know. But I'm just saying, what I do is a shoot, because anybody would walk away from a $300,000-$400,000 a year job like I did in January of '88 is a shooter.
Right.
But I don't like Zink. Zink is a backstabbing prick. I seen him in 1991 at a bar drinking and asked him if he had anything that he wanted to say to my face, and immediately backed down. And those are the kind of guys I stay away from in the business.
Right.
I got maybe 5% of the guys I got along with. And that's definitely, he was a so-so worker, good-looking kid, and pretty good talent. But there's just too many of them out there, much better.
What about Matt Bourne?
Well, Matt and I go back a long way. You know, Matt is also from Oregon. He's a great amateur wrestler, Milwaukee High School. And being Tony Bourne's son, tough Tony Bourne, who made a, as people that I'm talking to probably know, made a big name in this business.
Right. Back
before cable took over and so on, a lot of territories. But Matt became Doink the Clown. I remember a lot of people laughing at him. And I told Matt, I said, don't worry about that, man. That money is real you're making. Yeah, I don't know what Matt was making, but I'm saying close to 5 to 10, 15,000 a week. So go ahead and laugh at him if you want. They wouldn't laugh to Matt's face either, because Matt, similar like I am, Matt's a real tough kid,
Right.
tough man, and he don't back down to nobody.
What about Curt Hennig, young Curt Hennig?
You know, another sad one, right? Curt Hennig. I mean, I seen that kid go. He was, let's see, I broke in '82, and then he was green as grass, just like I was green. And then he was struggling up in Portland. Vern Gagne had sent him down from the AWA to Portland to better his skills before he went back to the AWA, which is considered a bigger territory.
Right.
AWA, NWA, WWF, right?
Right.
And then the world class of Von Erichs. That's a whole total different story. But he improved more than probably, there's maybe 2 or 3 wrestlers that I can say improved as much, but not more than Curt Hennig. And he made himself Mr. Perfect, who came up with that gimmick. I don't know him or Vince.
Right.
He played it to a T, and he became a fantastic wrestler. You know, fantastic. He had all 4 qualities also.
Definitely. What about Rip Oliver?
Rip, got to give him a great pat in the back, because he is the one who stood by me in Portland, and we used to go to the Portland Sports Arena in the ring in November. I broke in November 6th. I wrestled my first match with him, which was a 15-minute draw, and he seen I had the talent. He didn't have no baby faces except for Hack Sawyer.
Right.
And he was a smaller baby face, but that guy could really wrestle. So Chris Adams was there also as a baby face. And he'd take me in the ring, Rip Oliver, boom. He worked with me, and finally my skills improved. And later on, I helped him, he helped me, and we always stayed close.
What about Stan Stasiak?
Well, what can you say about Stan? I mean, he was, they put the belts on Stan and I in 1983 of, I think it was March of '83 or February. And Stan was going out of the business in 1940, he was 47.
Right.
And he was done with the business till I came along, and we became tag team partners, because Owen and Rip Oliver, who was actually booking,
Right.
you know, with Don Owen, said, put these two guys together. Stan's experience along with Billy Jack's inexperience can help polish up Billy.
Right.
So that's what we did. And Stan loved it because it put him back in the game again, which he loved. He was the former 1973, the former WWF heavyweight champion. If only for a month. That's big. And he also had the best match in the world with Andre the Giant. Do you remember that?
I heard about it. I did read about it. Yeah.
I'm telling you, Andre and him, it was the best sell job I've ever seen in my life. I'll just briefly tell you about it. But, you know, Stan was familiar, and his gimmick was the heart punch.
Right.
He'd lift up the guy's left arm, and then, boom, to the heart.
Right.
And then everybody would go down kicking, and that was his finish.
Right, right.
He'd pop my watch out. I was to shoot, man. And so, everybody he'd beat. Well, Andre, no one beat him. Stan's wrestling Andre the Giant in the Madison Square Garden, I believe it is. 20,000 plus sold out. And, you know, Andre the Giant just beating the crap out of Stan, which is normal.
Right.
Normal. And so finally, he snuck that heart punch in. Boom. And then he backed up, and everybody was wondering what's going to happen because everybody's taking a fall, and Andre just laughed it off. And then Andre started to, you know, Stan backed up into the turnbuckle. Andre's going, and just starts walking toward him, a big 7'5" giant. And Stan's just going back like this here, and all of a sudden Andre stops and grabs his heart. And then took a fall backwards, and Stan jumped on him to count 1, 2. I think he pushed him off or something with one arm, and he flew about 5 feet in the air.
Right.
Probably 10. And then he took and threw him over the top and disqualified himself, and then held his heart, selling his heart like you're supposed to do in this business. A lot of the boys forget that. You know, when you're working a leg or arm, to sell it.
Right.
Always sell it. But he sold it and put Stan over like $1 million because he loves Stan. I mean, Lee's played cribbage all the time, you know, and then went back and,
Right.
man, that was probably the best match, sell job I've ever seen by Andre the Giant and Stan together.
That's awesome. Now, how well did you like that Portland territory?
I loved it because I was home every night.
Right.
My dad, as you can understand, and I'm sure as I look into the camera, the sexual abuse thing, anybody who's been abused wants to be with their family. I wanted to tell my dad what happened, but the best thing I could do was to stay close to him.
Right.
And I never wanted to tell him because my dad would have killed him.
Right.
I mean, you know, I got sexually molested in the worst way, every way you can think of, okay?
Right,
I
right.
won't go into details.
Right.
But I never told him. I held him for 37 years till I turned 52 this year.
Right.
I told people, but so being home in Portland was great. You know, I was home with my dad and my brothers.
How did you wind up for Eddie Graham down in Florida? How did that come about?
Okay, as far as the best promoter in the world was Eddie Graham, the late Eddie Graham, old school. What happened, I don't know. I don't know what the problem was, man. There was something to do with Dusty Rhodes and Eddie Graham. We had this big outdoor show, and I got that. Let's see, on the internet they got a bunch of magazines. I'll hold this one up.
Right.
This is one I didn't even know existed. I was on like 40 front covers in '84 and '85, and I didn't even know about it. You know, I didn't care.
Right.
I don't got the ego that a lot of guys have. Believe it or not, I don't. And I wrestled for my dad, but that's me in the $50,000 Full Nelson match.
Right.
Versus Full Nelson with superstar Billy Graham, the legend in the '70s with Vince McMahon Sr., WWF. And that's Shoot Blood. That's another 40-stitch job. When I used to gig, man, I gigged almost all the way to the bone. As
wow.
You can probably see by
Oh,
the
yeah.
scars. They go. But Billy was Hulk Hogan stole his style, stole everything from him. And in my opinion, when you steal a guy's gimmick, you should give the guy 10%, 5%, something, especially when Billy got down on his luck and
Right.
Hulk was making millions. And I disrespect you, Hulk Hogan, for not doing that. Your money's great, everything is fine, But I disrespected Hulk Hogan for that. And that was a shoot on that, and that's a shoot all the way.
Wow.
Great, you know. But I'll take $1 million if you got it.
What are your memories of Dusty Rhodes from back in the day?
Well, the thing that confused me when I was green in '84, I was only in the business a year and a half before I came to Florida. But that's where I got all these, you know, that's where these magazines started to come in.
Right, you're on a lot.
Yeah, so I didn't realize that. See, no one cared about Portland wrestling. There's no wrestling magazine coverage down there.
Right.
And I think Don Owens wanted it that way. But to keep people there longer, his boys.
Right.
But Eddie Graham, like, he's seen a couple of my tapes on VHS that just came out, and he wanted me down there real bad. He guaranteed me, I think it was $1,500 or $2,000 a week. $2,000 a week, and I could sell my pictures.
Right.
Okay, so who's going to turn that down and be in a major territory and get that coverage?
Right, right.
You know, can you see me by just
Yep.
my shirt?
That's
Sorry.
perfect.
Then came this show here. It was in the summer of '84, where all the stars came. I remember Jerry Lawler came down. Another one of the guys I don't like. You know, it was like Michael Jackson. I think he was sexually molested a young girl and bought his way out of it with money in Kentucky. Guys like that I don't respect, especially myself being abused. So I got no respect for Jerry Lawler at all. You want to ask me a couple questions, I'll tell you a little shoot about him later if you want.
Okay, you go on about him now if you want.
Well, we just follow
Okay.
the lead. You know, take me
Okay.
through like you're doing. That way I
Okay.
can remember it better. Because, so, in '84, no one got paid. All the big stars came down. And one-man gang was in our territory of Florida. So it's only natural when a guy from another business comes, you do a job for the guy and put him over.
Right.
Well, Jerry Lawler refused to do a job, you know. You know, even Hulk Hogan done his job for Lawler, and he kept playing it over and over on TV. So we didn't get paid for a month in this.
Wow.
Then a month and a half went by, and there was 50,000 people. My Miami Dolphin players, Don Shula was there as one of the guest timekeepers or something. $50,000 or $500,000 gate, 40,000 people. Finally, we got paid $1,000. Main event. Main event was Dusty against Ric Flair. Man, stunk. It really did.
Right.
Flair had to carry Dusty all the way. Of course, that's the way it always was. Dusty had the charisma and he had the rap, but he had nothing else. Anyway, finally, there was some falling out between Dusty Rhodes as booker and owner Eddie Graham. And he shipped out, which now I look back is one of the most chicken shit things that a human being could ever do. And I look back now, Dusty, I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy, you piece of shit. Because Eddie Graham committed suicide over it, shot himself in the head. I talked to Eddie a week before he died. Every man left. What Dusty Rhodes did, he had a deal work with Crockett Promotions.
Right.
And he took every talent, like it was 9, I was probably, you know, the main event guy there. I don't want to say that as a bragging, milky main event, 1 or 2 guy there, I don't know. But Dusty seen that, and he was jealous of me. I look back at jealousy, Barry Windham, and all that stuff like that. He shipped them all out to Crockett Promotions in 1984 and asked me if I wanted to go. I said, what's going on, man? He wouldn't tell me. Something to do with the payoff. And he ripped Eddie Graham off.
Wow.
And then left for the Carolinas. He had a plan all the way. I stayed on with Eddie Graham.